What's up guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to part 2 of this video series. And also, before I forget, happy holidays. I hope you guys are having a good time with family and friends, or just maybe taking a break from work. But if you're watching this video in the future, past 2022, we're just going to be editing a real estate video sequence. And because of the way we shot it outlined in part 1 of this video, it's going to be super easy. So thanks for joining. Let's get into it. All right, we have way too much footage, but that's just because I personally like to overshoot everything. It just takes a couple extra minutes when you're on site, but for your editing, it gives you a lot more room to be creative and change things if one of your shots doesn't end up being as good as you thought it was on your computer. All right, so we're just gonna pre-cut all of the good parts of our footage and drag and drop them into the timeline, into the groups like we talked about earlier. I'm just gonna stack them loosely into layers in their sections so that we can move them around really easily and keep them in order. So we did shoot all of our wide shots at 30 frames per second and all of our detail shots at 60 frames a second. So I'm gonna go in and change the speed on all of those to where it's gonna smooth out our playback a lot. All right, so for the wide shots, I'm just gonna put all of those at 80% speed, and the detail shots are all gonna be at 40% speed. So I like to do this to avoid using warp stabilizer or stabilization button in Final Cut, whatever it's called. All right, so next we're gonna move the order of the clips around. So I know this is super simple, but one thing I like to do is pretend that I'm just watching it. And so I'll have like a wide shot going into the room, and anything that catches my eye in that room, if it's like a main selling feature or something like that, I'll put a detail shot of that right afterwards. You gotta pretend like you're the viewer watching this video for the first time and you don't know anything about the house, and whatever that person might wanna see, I always put that next if I can. So sometimes this totally doesn't matter, but for this example, if you're going into the kitchen, what's the first thing you notice? Probably like the sink area or the oven area. So then I'll show that video and just keep tying the clips together and together until we get to the end. Whatever's gonna make the most sense to the viewer and keep them grounded in that space to where they know where they are in the video, in the house, that's what I go with. All right, so we're just gonna drag these clips around and see what flow works best and what do we like. This is also where you can kind of match up camera movements. So if you've got a shot that's going left to right, put another clip that's doing the same thing after that. Or if you've got a shot going straight forward, or if you've got a parallax shot, you can line them up after each other to where they just really flow seamlessly together. Or you can use them to give kind of a breath to the video. So like you've got a bunch of detail shots and then we're gonna put like a POV walkthrough shot in the middle. That's why I always like to get those, because it's always a good kind of breather spot from detail overload. So I'll put some details, then I'll put the POV shot, and then I'll put some more details, and then we'll probably be pretty much done with the room. All right, so next we've got to line it up with the music to where when you're watching it and listening to it, it's seamless, it makes sense. But first we got to pick a song. I always try to find something that matches the vibe of the house primarily. So if it's like a really modern house, you want a song that sounds pretty modern. If it's like a really traditional house, you want a song that sounds pretty traditional. All right, so I already have these picked out, and I think I'm gonna go with this one and just drop it into my timeline. You don't always have to cut your footage on the beat with the music, Sometimes it can feel a little bit repetitive if you do that, just like 4 beats, 4 beats, 4 beats, 4 beats or something. So the main things I watch out for are actually dynamics. So if there's like a big part to the song, I like to put some big shot in that spot. And if there's like more intimate details to a house, like a primary bedroom and like baths and like cool relaxing stuff, that's where I'll put the more chill parts of the song, trying to make it kind of match the vibe of the part of the house as much as you can. Okay, so we're just gonna go through and cut every single clip to where it lines up better and is a good length. My number one goal for cutting the clips is that, is it long enough for the viewer that's never seen this house before to catch the information, understand it, and remember it. Once it's done that, you can cut it. Go to the next shot. Okay, and same thing for repetitive shots. So if you've got like 5 shots of a sink or 5 drone shots of the same side of the house, don't put those all right by each other, okay? It's redundant. This is all about information, and if you show the same information 5 times in a row, like, what's the point? Anyways, real estate videos are all about information. So if you take too long before you do a cut, or if you're too short, they might totally miss the information, or they might get bored and stop paying attention. So there's a fine line that you'll figure out the more and more you do this. People have pretty short attention spans, so keeping things as straightforward, concise, show the information in as few shots as possible, that'll keep people the most engaged. Sometimes I'll also add speed ramps in this stage of the editing because, I don't know, some just like perfectly smooth movements are a little bit boring, and when you add a speed ramp, you can really kind of draw emphasis to like the entrance of a room, or kind of use it to transition from one shot to another shot too. All right, so everything's looking good. It's playing back nicely. It's all smooth and stuff. The directions are right, but you might notice everything looks really, really flat and boring. So we gotta color grade it. So because I shoot the same way a lot, I have some presets I already made for this, and I'm just gonna drag and drop it onto every clip and then click export and we're done. Just kidding. It's not that easy. With any presets, they look really good for some shots, depending on your lighting conditions, depending on your white balance. It changes for every single shot, so you gotta tweak them, always. So I'm gonna go through and tweak my exposure, my white balance, and tint, and sometimes contrast and lifting shadows and stuff like that, depending on the type of shot it is. So for this one, it looks really good right out of the bat with the LUT. And this one, same thing. Let's try it on this one. Okay. So a lot of times it's gonna work really good if the lighting's pretty similar. So that looks good. Okay, always double check it, make sure it matches the clip before it. Add some stabilization in there. Okay. That looks pretty good. Okay. That looks a little bit blue, so you could warm that up a little bit if you wanted to. And then this one, we're gonna change the curve a little bit to where it's got a little bit more contrast on the low end. Get those darker spots a little bit darker and more punchy. And speaking of darker and punchy, this clip was kind of a headache to work with. So I'm working with the curves, and I am trying to get the black parts to be black, but still keep some details in the shadows. And honestly, this is where my camera limitations show up the most. If I had more dynamic range, it would look better. So I ended up actually scrapping that clip altogether and replacing it with this nice one from the 50mm lens. And we're gonna be good to go. On to the next room. All right, so we got the color grading done. So now let's watch the sequence. All right, guys, that's it. Hope you liked the video. If you're new, make sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on future videos. And leave a comment if you got any questions, concerns, if you want to add any tips to share with anybody. The more, the merrier. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.